I'm delighted to introduce to you Stefan Hoover, an apprentice and student of mine from the Portland area. Thank you so much, Stefan, for joining me today at my home, and I hope that you feel great about celebrating our professional holiday together, the World Tai Chi and Qigong Day.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Lama, and I look so very forward to it.
Fantastic. I know that you have been on a journey of personal development for quite a while. How did you get interested in Qigong in particular?
Well, when I was first exploring Qigong, at the time I was really interested in exploring different kinds of spiritual disciplines. So I went to a lot of various meetings regarding metaphysics and spirituality so that I could network and so that I could explore and basically expand my views. It was at one of those meetings that one of the people that I was talking to suggested that I look into Qigong. And so I decided to look into some Qigong teachers in the Beaverton area, and after exploring a few different styles, what you happened to offer really resonated with me, and I've been studying with you ever since.
Brilliant. How would you describe your experience with Qigong or Qidao in particular?
I would have to say that my experience with Qigong is transformative. Your family lineage art of Qidao offered me the spiritual guidance that I was looking for, and I found so much more as well. I found holistic ways to improve my strength and flexibility. I found some very effective ways to deal with stress. I learned how to get myself unstuck when I was in a rut. And I also learned how to deal with common aches and pains, such as when I pulled muscles in my back or my neck. I also learned how, through your Qigong coaching, how to set and reasonably manifest goals in a specific timeline. And so I would have to say that my Qidao really went above and beyond my expectations when I was exploring different types of Qigong.
That is cool. And obviously, you experienced some benefits because otherwise you wouldn't be sticking with it. What would you say were the benefits that you experienced as a result of practicing Qidao or Qigong coaching?
Well, I touched on a few of them. What was really big for me was muscle pain, specifically my back and my neck. I am delighted to report that after training with you, my back pain has been significantly reduced, and the pain in my neck is completely gone. I learned that the reason why I was pulling my muscles is because they were often too weak for the jobs I was asking them to do, and so through some of the harmonious strength training techniques that you taught me, I was able to really strengthen those areas of my life that were giving me such troubles. But I would have to say, probably the greatest benefit that I got was from your unique style of Qigong coaching. And what I got from that was you helped me to learn what areas of my life I was weak in and really needed help empowering and finding the right direction and what to do in those areas of my life. And as a result of that, I have experienced a lot of great successes in my personal life, such as getting a promotion in my job.
Fantastic. Well, that's something that obviously goes long ways, not in terms of only getting any advancement in job or career. Virtually every part of life can be enhanced or empowered because essentially if we have any areas of weakness, just like muscles, they will be compromised. They will feel strained. And so, like for example, if career or finances are strained, we will feel that kind of strain financially, or we will feel like our career is stagnating or we are stuck. And so I'm glad that you brought up both the muscles and also the career development because they basically follow the same principles. And also a really cool principle that I would weave into it is that where attention goes, energy flows. If you don't pay any attention to your career, well, what's the likelihood of it blossoming?
Exactly.
If you don't pay any attention to your muscles, what's the likelihood of them strengthening?
Exactly.
Cool. Well, so what kind of advice would you give to someone who's just learning about Qigong and beginning to explore the energy arts?
I would say that it's okay to look around and test out different styles of Qigong to find out what resonates with you, because that's really what matters.
Hmm.
There are plenty of great Qigong teachers in the area, and I think that since each individual has their own path to follow, it's really important that you find a teacher that resonates with you. I would
Right.
also advise them not to be too hard on themselves, because a lot of the concepts and a lot of the movements that you're going to learn are not going to be natural to most people as they pick them up. Some of the concepts might need to be pondered on a little bit, and some of the movements might need to be practiced before they start feeling comfortable. So I would say just hang in there, don't give up, and you will experience some growth.
That's an interesting point, that if some movements feel unnatural, is it because they're not natural movements or because we're not used to making movements in this way? For example, a natural stance.
Hmm.
As the name implies, it's the most natural thing that's going to happen to your body. If you just stand up and jump, you basically are going to find yourself standing in a natural stance. It's something that is so natural that you don't need to teach other people how to stand. You just simply invite them to jump and land, and bingo, they're already in a natural stance. However, if some movements or some techniques are not natural, wouldn't it be fair to say that they're contrived?
Oh, I would absolutely agree with you. In fact, I agree with you in the whole idea of the natural stance being natural. I think the issue is that our society has taught us to be and behave in an unnatural way. And
Uh-huh.
so those things that are truly natural feel foreign to us because we've been programmed from birth to do things be this way, be this person, don't do what's right for you, do what society says. And
Hmm.
so as a result of that, I think we've tricked ourselves into thinking that what is natural feels unnatural.
That's fascinating. So, in a sense, what we're doing is we are relearning how to be natural.
Exactly.
It's almost like relearning how to be spontaneous. Well, how do you do that? Well, practice spontaneous actions or practice natural activities or actions. Um, what have you been up to since you graduated from my program, from the Qigong coaching program?
Well, I've actually been very busy, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm continuing my journey of personal growth with you through practice and through coaching, and you're actually teaching me how to become a Qigong coach in your style. So I'm really excited to be able to add value to people in that way. I'm
Uh-huh.
also continuing to network professionally and continue to climb the ladder in my job and personal life. And I feel like I've been really blessed to get into the back pocket of so many amazing and dynamic individuals such as yourself. Um, Recently, I've been able to get around several business leaders in the Portland, Beaverton area, and I have the privilege of helping them to expand on some of their projects. And while I can't make any promises because I don't know what anyone's qualified for, if there is someone in your audience who is seriously ambitious about wanting more out of life than what they currently have, making connections and looking into other projects, I would be happy to sit down with that person and explore what this opportunity might look like for them.
Hmm. Well, it sounds like there are opportunities out there that are worth exploring. Even crisis has a seed of opportunity in it.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
we have been kind of living through a form of crisis for over a year, thanks to the pandemic, that created some challenges, but it also created some opportunities. And some of us have benefited from the opportunities that this pandemic brought about. Now, if you just kind of imagine or daydream, what would be the new normal, if there is such thing as new normal, that could potentially coalesce as a result of changes that we've been experiencing over the last year, would you say?
Are you referring to the Qigong industry or the world at large?
The world at large, and perhaps we can look into the Qigong industry as well.
I think one thing is that masks are here to stay. I'm not necessarily excited about that, but I think that the US and several European countries will probably adopt the same kind of cultural issue that they have in many Asian countries of adopting wearing a mask when you're sick or when you're around people who are sick. That's one thing that I think is going to be a part of our culture.
Mm.
But looking at it a little bit deeper, I think that our global society is going to be more focused on really helping each other. Because, in my opinion, this pandemic has really shown a spotlight on how weak our institutions are in society and how much we need to band together as individuals to help one another get through hard times.
That's true. And as a matter of fact, not only individuals, but countries and communities need to band together. Otherwise, if one community, for example, is getting seriously sick, the next door community is not going to be particularly healthy.
Exactly.
By comparison, they may be healthier, but their health and well-being will definitely be impacted.
I agree. I would have to say that one other change that I think the pandemic will bring about is that the service industry, in terms of people who help other people, jobs that serve, jobs that help, I think those are really going to start exploding because, I mean, when has there been a time when more people are in need of help?
Absolutely. We have not only service industry, but also so-called essential jobs kind of highlighted or put front and center. So there are obviously some people performing those kinds of jobs who have not been paid well. And obviously they need to be paid better because they're going to quit. They're
Right.
not going to perform the essential work if they're not being compensated for it. But not only the people who do the essential work, I think there are a lot of workers, for example, who get used to and perhaps begin to prefer not to commute to work because they can work remotely. Online education becomes kind of a standard operating procedure for many schools and universities.
Oh, yeah.
And even doctors start doing telemedicine with many of their patients. What is your perspective on how the society potentially may evolve as a result of these changes? And maybe we can look at not just society at large, but also the Qigong community in particular.
Well, you know, I actually think that this is one of the best opportunities that Qigong has had in a long time. And I would say that for a few different reasons. First of all, stress is at an all-time high. So helping and learning techniques of how to deal with stress is certainly something that's going to be in demand. Also, there's continuing to be a need for health and how to stay healthy and get good exercise in your own area. But I also think that there's room for Qigong to evolve, which you've really helped to pioneer in terms of doing coaching online and movement practices online, and really helping to bring Qigong into the 21st century. I think that you are one of the biggest pioneers in that area, and so I really look forward to what you have to bring for Qigong in the future.
Well, one of the things that is pretty apparent is that health clubs had to shut down their doors, and many of them just went out of business. Not only health clubs, but also many yoga studios, martial arts dojos, and various other facilities where people would go to work out, to train, to do some wellness practices. And basically they had to close their doors because they couldn't operate during the pandemic. Some of them had been in fact impacted so much that they just simply couldn't stay in business.
Yeah.
But the alternative would be to basically practice at home. And doing some of the practices that we kind of take for granted in Qidao would be life transforming for many practitioners because they would discover for themselves that they don't need to follow somebody else's forms. They can actually start exploring and by paying attention to themselves, learning a great deal about energy and about the principles of energy awareness, and immediately start applying what they're learning. So essentially, the applications then become the practice. And basically that's what weaves this practice into daily life. What would you say might be the practice, maybe just one singular practice that seems like is easy to weave into daily life that you would care to share with our viewers?
Well, you know, I think that I am inspired to share a centering exercise with you. But before I do, I would like to point out that I believe that Qi Dao is specifically poised to really make the most of this online space because of the fact that it doesn't rely on forms. It doesn't rely on you having to do things this way and only this way.
Mm-hmm.
It's about exploring. It's about feeling what resonates with you. And think because of that, it's so much easier to be able to participate in Qi Dao and be able to get value from it, as opposed to having to do a form when you can't necessarily see the whole picture of the person.
Right, exactly. I think monkey see, monkey do approach to training is outmoded. And the 21st century requires becoming more authentic. And authenticity doesn't come from repetition of what somebody else finds helpful or correct. So if somebody does something that works for them, power to them. Does it mean that everybody is going to benefit in the same way from doing things in the exact same way? Probably not. Often what works for one person may not work the same way for another person. So that's exactly why exploring and kind of rediscovering or maybe even reinventing the wheel, as it were, becomes such an important part of this process. So even centering exercise, many people say, I want to become centered when they come to study Qigong. Well, how do you become centered? Well, you may listen to some nice music, or you may go for a walk in the park and maybe look at some ducks floating in the pond, or maybe you can sit and meditate. But once you get off the meditation cushion, I'll leave the park. Are you going to be as centered?
No, probably not. But that's why it's so helpful that Qi Dao has a specific exercise designed to get you into that centered state of mind, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing.
Exactly. Well, let's do that. Let's explore centering in practice.
Well, as Lama showed earlier, I would begin the centering exercise with a short natural stance, and you do that simply by lightly hopping and landing on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might need to do it a couple times in order to get the correct alignment, because it might not necessarily happen the first time. You might have to do it one, you might have to do it 3 times, or 2 or 3 times, but you'll get there. And so, to do the centering exercise, you want to imagine that your spine is a vertical pole, an axis around which you are rotating. And while you're doing that, you want to make sure that your arms and your shoulders are limp and loose. And it will look something like this. Be careful not to hit any of the objects behind you. But the idea is that by slowly rotating and maintaining relaxation, for me, I noticed personally that it helps me to get into a calm state of mind where I don't have all these thoughts jumbling around in my brain. I feel more focused, and I feel more, well, as the name would imply, I feel more centered. I noticed that after a few minutes, or even after a few seconds of doing this, I feel calm. I feel like it's easier to breathe. I feel like I'm just ready for the day. That's the best way that I can explain it. And so if that's something that you're looking for, doing this exercise will be just the ticket for you.
And the interesting thing about it is that we can test it. For example, if I push you and you do exactly the same maneuver with your body as you were just doing by yourself, but now you actually feel that there's energy coming at you, and statistically speaking, it's very unlikely that it will be distributed perfectly between the right and left sides of your body. So there's a little bit more on the left. Great. Which direction will you pivot?
I'll pivot to the left.
And if there's more energy flowing to the right?
Well, then I pivot to the right.
And you don't even have to use your own energy. I will provide you the energy that will turn you in that direction.
Exactly.
Now, interestingly enough, when you turn, there's also a little bit of a compression that happens inside of your body due to twisting. And so there's going to be an exhalation. So when you're receiving the push, you just simply exhale. It's almost like I'm helping you breathe.
Oh, yeah. I feel like it's much more natural to exhale on the turn, and then when you come to the center, that's when you feel like you want to inhale.
Exactly. So when you're doing centering exercise, that's basically also an opportunity to synchronize the physical actions of your body with physiological function, such as breathing.
And I find that when I'm able to do something like that, it feels like your body is no longer working against itself. And that when all of the parts of your body are on the same team, well, then that's when you really have holistic success.
Integration is such an important principle. When we compartmentalize our physical actions or our physiological functions, we often experience them struggling against each other. In other words, if a person, for example, tries to lift something, they often will produce the sound like they're grunting.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they doing that? Because they're compressing air inside of their body, in their lungs, but they don't let it out. And so the grunt is actually the sound of strained passage of air through the vocal cords.
Makes perfect sense.
If you easily exhale as you are exerting effort, the effort becomes more effortless,
Mm-hmm.
and the results become more effective. So basically, that's what we call peak performance. Obviously, peak performance is something that happens when you do this consistently over time, but when you develop the habit of moving like this, something really amazing happens. It becomes your new normal. It becomes your standard operating procedure, so to speak. You literally integrate it into your lifestyle. So, in a sense, then we don't just want to learn a Qigong style of some sort. We want to create a Qigong lifestyle where these principles are woven into the tapestry of our every movement, every step you take on earth. It becomes an expression of this harmonious culture of movement, right?
I would agree. And when you're living in that mode, then your life becomes harmonious, and it just seems like everything flows together, which is really the whole point of what you're teaching. That's what Qi Dao is, the art of being in the flow.
Yes, how can you be in the flow if you're not moving that way? You are the way you move.
Exactly.
So if you move in a fluid and harmonious manner, it stands to reason that you begin to function in a harmonious fashion. And that's exactly what the name of the game is. Anyone who practices Qigong aspires to be in the flow of Qi.
Mm-hmm.
Because struggling against the flow of Qi, struggling against the universal energy is futile. Nobody has ever won
Right.
that struggle. So we learn how to stop struggling and actually be in the flow. But how do we get into the flow? What is your favorite way to find the flow in your daily life?
I would say that that's probably by practicing resonance. And that's
Yeah.
the idea of, if I have multiple choices in front of me, whenever you're going to do a thing or eat a meal or any kind of decision, you always have different options. Well, we have societal pressures of people think I should do this one thing. Maybe my spouse thinks I should do this. The people at work think I should do this. But often when we make decisions, the last person we really consult is ourselves. Funny enough. But consulting yourself on your own decisions is really the most important thing you can do. By practicing resonance, which is really feeling out which one of the choices in front of you is really true for who you are according to your own value system, that's the best way to make decisions. And I find that by doing that, everything seems to flow together and everything happens in the orders that I need it to. And I feel like that's what it means to be in the flow.
Absolutely. And the key to that is developing this sense of energy resonance. So that's one of the tricks of the trade, so to speak. How do we develop that sense? Well, simply put, if you resonate with something, you feel better, feel more relaxed. Your breathing becomes easier and smoother. If you don't resonate with something, for example, imagine you're in a company of somebody who you can't stand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're not going to be as relaxed. Your breathing probably is not going to be as smooth, and you probably will be cringing inside. Now, if that's the case, that's an opportunity or an invitation to explore what could you resonate better with. In other words, when you run into something that you don't resonate with, instead of just trying to latch onto that issue and perhaps try to break through or get rid of it or fix it, what if we actually expand our consciousness and explore what other alternatives are there? Because there's almost always something that you could focus on that you resonate better with.
Exactly. It's almost never black and white. This is the clear choice, this is the clear wrong choice.
Hmm.
It's almost always a matter of degrees. I prefer this a little bit more, I prefer that a little bit less.
Yeah, and your preference also is not set in stone, it's subject to change. So what you resonated with yesterday may not be the same as what you will resonate with tomorrow.
Exactly. I think that resonance itself is also part of being in the flow. Because when you're in the flow, you'll find that what you resonate with changes, as you just said.
Well, because you change, your energy changes. That's why people come to me and receive my coaching, is because they want to change.
Exactly.
So because they're changing, there's going to be some changes in energy. And that means that you will be resonating with different things over time.
Mm-hmm. That's what they call growth.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing this practice and your perspectives on both personal growth and Qigong in general. And those of our viewers who want to learn from Stefan, I would definitely recommend connecting with him. How can our viewers connect with you, Stefan?
Oh, well, you can connect with me by clicking the link below and getting in my calendar.
Awesome. I highly recommend that, and I can guarantee that your life will never be the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Loma.